Welcome to NRG at Night. This is day 2, our second broadcast, and we're on time this time. So things are getting better, and they will continue to do so in the future. Tonight, we have a couple matches for you from round 2 of our Pioneer with Ikoria event. And I have a guest here to discuss some of the recent happenings and go over the matches with me. But first, there was a little bit of news today. Star City Games announced the cancellation of the remaining Season 1 events, which really doesn't probably come as a big surprise to anybody. That's just kind of the world we're living in right now. NRG Gaming had a couple weeks ago, we announced we don't project our events as far in the future as they do, but all of our schedule is off the table for now. And I don't see it coming back really anytime soon. Things are just not safe out there right now. So this show and these events are kind of just our way of staying in touch with you. We started with a 16-player invite-only event, just kind of as a proof of concept to see how things worked. That went well enough, so we're proceeding with this. These matches that you're seeing over the next week or two are from our first open enrollment event, which was Pioneer, like I said. Our next event has now been scheduled. It's May 9th, if you're interested in playing. It's going to be standard this time, and it's going to be played on Arena. So mark your calendars for that. And if your calendars are anything like mine and you keep a calendar, there's probably a lot of empty spots on it right now. As for today, my guest is Simon Kamerow, who is a 2-time competitor in the NRG Series Championship. Simon, how are you doing, and what's the word for today?
I'm doing well, and honestly, the word for today is companionship. You know, as we always say, it's not the magic, it's the gathering. And all of our players tonight have gathered a companion with them to enter into the matches.
Yeah, really, companions kind of sweeping all the formats, kind of rewriting the rules of even how you build your decks. And you, as kind of you're known in the community as kind of a brewer. You explore the spaces that are kind of not already filled. How does that make you happy, or is like how do you feel about this?
Well, so I mean, I think it's hard to it's hard to exaggerate or overstate how much of a paradigm shift companions are. I mean, forever in Magic, it's been kind of a rule. You start the game with 7 cards in your hand. And now some decks have a functional 8th card. And so, you know, thinking of all the different possibilities that opens up, it's crazy. And then also when you think about the restraints they place on the deck, you know, it's a really old adage, but restraints breed creativity. So now we all of a sudden see decks which would never go over 60 cards. Every mid-range pile that plays blue is going up to 80 now, you know? So yeah. It's definitely a time to reassess a lot of weird, long-thought axioms, and it gives you some flexibility to experiment with new things.
Yeah, so I'm interested, because there's long been arguments, you know, 60 cards is the right number, and always there's someone saying, oh, we should play 61. Now we're going to people saying we should play 81. I don't know if we'll get to that point, but we'll see. Anyway, We're going to go ahead and look at our first feature match tonight. Again, these are from round 2 of our event. Our first match is going to be Justin Brickman playing Simic Gyruda combo against Alexander Hamilton playing Jeskai Fire Superfriends with Yorion. So both competitors with companions in the deck. You see here Justin Brickman, who is a merchandising assistant. I know he helps out at NRG Gaming during events. He helps run the booth, and he's also a moderately successful player in the area. You can read this for yourself. He has some tournament success. Never leaves the house without hot sauce and ranch dressing. Now that's kind of, I don't feel personally a great need to like season my food. I feel like if I'm eating out, if I'm in a restaurant, they created the food for me the way they intended it to be. I don't need to bring my own toppings. How do you? What's your stance on this?
Well, but what if he's going to a grocery store, you know? I mean, does he bring condiments when he's not going somewhere to eat? I've seen him at Magic tournaments, and I guess, now I kind of want to just start checking him every time I see him, because I've never seen him inside his house, you know? So well, we'll get back to you on this one, to be continued.
I don't know about this. Okay, he's going to be facing Alexander Hamilton, who is a special education teacher from Homer Glen, Illinois. He has also played, like you have, Simon, he's played in 2 of the NRG Series Championships. He's actually had quite a bit of success on the series. He has 3 wins, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with him about Star Wars before. He's in the comic books, and his note here, he's the final player I wonder if they put this for me. Final to ever cast a Sensei's Divining Top in a series event. So, yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and check out our deck list for the first match tonight. Justin Brickman playing Simic, Gyruda, which Simon, we have some new cards here, and then we have clones, and that's really the whole deck. What are we doing?
Well, you see 22 copies of the card clone, give or take a couple of different card names. But really the big payoff is Gyruda. Gyruda is a companion. Every card in this deck has an even converted mana cost. That's Gyruda's rule. And when Gyruda enters the battlefield, both players mill the top 4, and you can put a creature from among those cards milled onto the battlefield. So the idea is you keep hitting clones, you mill your whole deck, eventually you get this Dragon Lord Kolagon and you do some damage, or you just pass the turn to your opponent and you say, oh, you can't draw any cards anymore.
Yeah, now this is very clearly a deck that did not exist before Ikoria was released.
No, I mean, this really looks like, I would say, an F&M pile that has been sparked up with a little bit of evil companionship from this demon Kraken out of the sideboard.
All right, that's good. That's a clever take. Okay, now let's go for Alex's deck. Alex playing Jeskai Fighters Superfriends. We see, as we saw yesterday in the Yorion decks, we see just huge piles of land. In this case, tons of Planeswalkers, some interaction spells, Fae of Wishes, and then we again have Yorion, Sky Nomad, which is the stipulation is that your deck has to have at least 20 cards more than the format minimum.
Every Yorion deck looks like a deck that I'm halfway through brewing, where I figured out roughly what I wanted to do. I've cut 0 fun ofs. You can see a million different fun ofs in here, and I haven't figured out the mana base at all, but I kind of roughly know what the colors are supposed to be. I mean, this is, I don't want to call it nonsense, but, there's certainly a lot of room for wackiness when you play 80 cards.
Yeah, and there's also, what surprises me is there are singletons in this deck. A singleton in an 80-card deck. When are you hoping to draw this card?
So I actually think that's really smart deck building. And that's going to sound weird, but this might be my kind of like brewing feelings where I think singletons are really valuable. And I think if you think about a deck where you want to have a certain percentage of cards that achieve certain effects, most of these planeswalkers are modal. So Elspeth, Sun's Champion, and Chandra, Awakened Inferno, both kind of deal with creatures on the board, but Chandra deals with smaller creatures, and Elspeth deals with larger creatures. Elspeth is better against creatures in play. Chandra's better against control decks, So by playing one of each of them, you get that kind of flexibility. And what I always think of with these Yorion decks is for a while with Valakut, you saw people playing like a 66 or 64 card deck so they could play enough mountains and so they could play enough lands and then still play enough relevant spells. And with Yorion, now you get to play, if you wanted to play roughly 2.5 Gideon of the Trials, now you play 3 in your 80-card deck or whatever. The numbers are all fudged in new ways.
No, that's a good way of looking at it. And then we have our sideboard is really minimal as far as is the actual sideboarding, because we have Yorion, which takes up a slot, and then we have 4 copies of Fae Wishes, which where most of these one-ofs are going to be used. They're going to be staying in the sideboard, even in the sideboard game. So really the only sideboard cards that we're actually looking at here are probably Mystical Disputes.
Yeah, although, often as you see with these one-of sideboard plans, you could see matchups where, and maybe this is one of them, Grafdigger's Cage comes in. I actually think we might see Deafening Clarion boarded in here just because it's better than Oath of Chandra against the Hexproof 2-mana accelerant creatures out of Justin's deck. But, I think one of the problems Alex has fundamentally in this matchup is that he's trying to grind out value slowly, and Justin is trying to combo kill as soon as he untaps with 6 mana.
Yeah, and this is going to be tough. There's no real counter spells in the deck here for Alex because it's a Fires of Invention deck. So Let's go ahead and see how this plays out. Let's take it down and get game 1 started here.
Yeah, and there's the telltale sign of the 8th card.
Right. So we're going to be watching from Justin Brickman's perspective in the match, and you can see here he's on the bottom with his Gyruda combo deck.
So earlier when I talked about the paradigm shift of companions, this is part of it. I would normally describe a hand like this as kind of, maybe it's a mulligan, but any hand that has a 2-drop accelerant or multiple 2-drop accelerants and good enough mana to cast them is a snap keep out of this Gyruda combo deck.
Yeah, this is probably on par with the top level hands Justin can draw, as we have 2 accelerators which will enable turn 4 Gyruda, and you can see the Gyruda's not in the hand, but that doesn't matter because it's just on layaway off to the side, ready to be cast whenever he gets around to it.
Right, and it's comical, but this is a blue-green deck, and you can actually see the mana to cast Dragonlord Kolagon right now. So,
no, that's true.
You know, Paradise Druid and Sylvan Caryatid are powerful cards.
So deck lists were open for this event, so they know what they're playing against. Justin knows that there aren't counter spells available in Alex's deck, and that really he kind of has free reign here, barring Fae of Wishes, and that's not going to come down in the immediate future. And Justin's going to be feeling pretty happy about the matchup, I would assume.
Yeah, I think we might see a kind of weird play where Justin might use a clone in his hand to clone the Sylvan Caryatid for his acceleration next turn instead of playing the Paradise Druid, just because it'll be easier to refill after a Deafening Clarion with the Paradise Druid. But I think he wants to still accelerate because once the Planeswalkers start coming online, that's when the game one can get a little dicey.
Yeah. Now, this is no... I don't think it's no guarantee that Justin's deck will just Goldfish to a win here. The match I played against this style of deck, the Gyruda chain was broken fairly early on, and there was a sizable board presence that resulted, but it wasn't just an immediate win. And with Alex playing 80 cards, the mill plan is still possible, but I don't know that it's very likely to go off in one shot.
Well, so one of the things that this version with multiple Dragonlord Kolagons can do is kill with hasty damage, because Spark Double and Clever Impersonator, I'm not sure if Clever Impersonator becomes non-legendary, but I know for a fact Spark Double can get into play in addition to Gyruda because it becomes non-legendary when it copies a creature.
No, you're right about that. Yeah, I believe Spark Double is the only one. I went through all of them. So we could see a potential damage of, I believe, Gyruda, Spark Double Gyruda, Kolagon, and then Paradise Druid, which all of that together would be 20 damage.
Right.
We
also might see Deafening Clarion to set Justin back a couple of turns.
Yeah, that's painful. And you're right. Okay, so you were right that Justin would have been safer perhaps copying the mana creature instead of playing another one if he got swept up, which did happen, but he ripped another carried off the top. He does still need another mana source. So,
right, well, so last turn he chose to play a Scryland instead of playing the untapped fourth source of mana. So he scryed the Caryatid to the top, which was another way of playing around the Deafening Clarion.
Sure. Okay, so
and look at this.
First Fae of Wishes, and we are getting Grafdigger's Cage.
Good game.
Creatures, cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. And there is some comments in the chat from Justin Brickman that this is perhaps not the most pleasant interaction he's ever seen. Now,
yeah, you see exchanged pleasantries, and then now things have become a competitive game of Magic the Gathering.
So we have Kolagon, which we can still, well, we can't cast yet, but we have the potential for it eventually.
Right.
On the other side, we have a Teferi on 7.
So what we're going to see here is clone the Sylvan Caryatid.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably on a later turn, if possible, I think Clever Impersonator can clone Planeswalkers, right? That's its special trick. So Impersonator or Spark Double could clone the Teferi and bounce this Grafdigger's Cage, creating a window to go off, which is scary. On top of that, there's now 2 Utopia sources of mana in play for a hasty 6/5 dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the weird things about this deck that doesn't get a lot of credit for is that if it's not under intense pressure, it actually plays a really good long game against permanent-based strategies.
Well, I believe that they're certainly possible, and maybe it plays a better long game than you would expect looking at the deck list, but this is not going to be easy. I would say that Alex is very happy with his position, and Justin is in heaps of trouble right now. But maybe he'll be able to get his way out. He's looking at his sideboard right now. He doesn't have a way to access it during the game, so maybe he's just thinking about what he plans on doing in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex continues. Teferi Time Railbird just bounces itself up to 8. And
Right, but so next turn, Dragon Lord Kolaghan is going to come down. I guess it's going to run into this Fae of Wishes, which is a pretty good blocker here.
Right, the Fairy can block, and then we have Gideon the Trials, which can negate some of the prevent damage in the future, although the let's see, some of the clone effect on Kolaghan's command, I'm sorry, not Kolaghan's command, wrong format here, Kolaghan Dragon Lord Kolaghan, will still be able to push damage through even if the initial copy is locked down, because unlike Gideon's intervention, Gideon the Trials just wipes out the damage from its target, not from all of that name.
Right.
So we're going to see...
And I think there was a little miscount of mana here. You know, this is the problem when all of your mana accelerants make 2.
Right.
Or sorry, cost 2, is that you can't change spells as fluidly.
Right. So Justin's going to slight change of plans here, and looks like we're going to, maybe consider playing the Vizier of Many Faces. Maybe we're going to back up.
Uh-oh. You see, what you're seeing here is somebody who is used to playing on Arena, where the lands are much more willing to work with you, but sometimes too much to your, benefit there.
Although this is not a case where an auto tapper effect screwed him. It was just that maybe we didn't properly account for the Wolfwillow Haven and how it was going to impact our mana for the turn.
So meanwhile, one of the things that Alex can kind of do in this game that's a weird backdoor is he can start assembling a Gyre Reach Sanitarium lock if he can find one of his copies of Narset.
Right.
And there you go. You see the power of the one-ups. This is a 3-color deck that plays a 4th color of cards in the sideboard, and it plays a bunch of colorless lands because the mana base has that flexibility for it.
Yeah, the Gyre Reach Sanitarium, like Simon was saying, alongside Narset, because if you activate the Gyre Reach on the opponent's turn, they will skip the draw from the Gyre Reach, but still have to play the discard side of it, and end up just down a card every turn, whereas Alex will stay even, as there'll be a looting effect for him. But that requires a Narset, and we don't see that yet. Let's see.
Right,
Alex,
but
a lot of cards in his hand, so
right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the upside to the Yorion decks is you can just start naming cards, and who knows? I mean, they could have it, It might not even be in the deck list, but it could still be in his hand. There's so many cards in this deck.
Yes, definitely. And then we also, as we're just adding, Omen of the Sea comes into play. As we add more cards with come into play effects onto the board, the eventual Yorion gets stronger and stronger, as it will just generate more value depending on, if there's one Omen of the Sea, if there's 3 Omen of the Seas, any other cards resetting Planeswalkers. There's lots of different stuff that can happen for Yorion to take advantage of. Plus, it's just currently it would be the biggest creature on the board.
Right, and I think we might see Alex pull the trigger on Yorion a little earlier than he'd want to normally, just because now he wants to end the game. He's survived the initial die to the Gyruda combo, so now he needs to make sure that he can't get scrapped through.
Yeah, this would be a game where Alex I would imagine, would be pretty disappointed to lose this game, just because he's disrupted Justin effectively. Justin's mainline kind of purpose of his deck has been shut down, and now he's left to try and just pick up the pieces and scrap, like you said, scrap something together. And it's not going to be easy.
Right, but meanwhile, I think we're going to see a really good combat step here.
Well, let's see if we can get the mana to work for us this time. Nina Black, there we go. All right. So Dragon Lord Kolaghan is going to enter play. It is a large creature, 6 power, and it has haste. So we are going to be able to put a thumping on this time. We can eliminate one of the Planeswalkers.
Right. And this is, if she were attacking Sarkhan, this would be even more canonical, but Kolaghan eating Planeswalkers is pretty good along the storylines,
I don't know, actually. I'm not a lore type of person, really, for Magic.
Well, I'm here with the lore tidbits all night if anybody has any questions in the chat.
Okay.
And I will make up answers for Ikoria because I have not read it yet.
Okay, so if you do have questions about lore or anything else for Simon or I, we will be taking questions at the end of the night. So stick around for that if you do have something you want answered. Meantime, we're moving through this game here. Another wish coming out for Alex, who has now Fires of Invention and quite a few land in play. So he's going to be able to cast whatever he wants. And in this case, it's going to be a free Ruinous Ultimatum, which is going to wipe out everything Justin has.
Back in my day, ultimatums only destroyed 3 permanents. What was that, Violent Ultimatum or something? The Jund one?
I don't remember the names of them, definitely. But yeah, the ultimatums have gotten, they're not all game-breaking cards, this new group of them. Some of them, it takes some, even in limited, it's hard to tell how effective they actually are. And we see Justin now wiped out and then conceding to the Narset Geiger Reach combo.
I think this is a smart concession, even though you can, eat your opponent's MTGO clock or whatever. You did your best, and then you got Violent Ultimatum. It's fine to concede.
Yeah, Ruinous Ultimatum, indeed. And actually,
sorry, Ruinous Ultimatums.
Alex with 2 different ultimatums in the sideboard.
Well, that's certainly inspired on his part.
Justin has definitely the more effective sideboard here, as he actually has a deck where he intends to swap cards in and out. So the Gyruda is going to stay where it is because that's a fixture of the sideboard, so you can play it as your companion. But we could see, what do you think? We're going to see Thought-Knot Seers here, potentially Negates, and maybe Blink of an Eye?
I would actually be more interested in just boarding in Negate and Blink of the Eye, or Blink of an Eye. You're not going to see a ton of counter spells, so Destiny Spinner is not the most attractive. I don't think there's enough of a clock to really warrant Dungeon Geists. And to be honest, you would want to take Mystical Dispute with Thought-Knot, but I think you're better off just kind of being a more proactive deck, using cheaper cards against a clunky mid-range strategy and Blink of an Eye to tempo them or break up a Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah. Now, it can be a little tough to try and be aggressive when the bulk of Justin's creatures can't really be even cast unless he has something else already on the board. But maybe Alex will provide targets, or I guess not targets necessarily, because clone effects don't target, but they copy. But I don't think Alex is going to be interested in doing that. And he's going to be sitting there with maybe a card or 2 comes in and out, but basically we're going to be looking at the same 80 again for Alex.
Well, and so this is what I was talking about earlier. So a card like Oath of Chandra in Alex's main deck does basically nothing in this matchup. And I would rather board in this Deafening Clarion, because you never want to Fae of Wishes for it. It's so bad. But it's slightly better than this blank piece of cardboard, or nearly blank piece of cardboard. And I think you could see a similar thing happen with the Grafdigger's Cage, although that one's such a powerful tutor target, you probably want to leave that for your Fae of Wishes.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that came in, because we have 4 copies of Fae of Wishes, and if Justin doesn't draw mana creatures, or if Alex is able to sweep them up, then Fae of Wishes 4 Cage will get underneath Gyruda.
Right.
Which is really all that matters here, is getting under. Can we stop before Gyruda does its thing? So, okay, let's go ahead and go down for game 2 and see if Justin can even things up here.
Oh, I just realized the possibility storm. Oh, wow. Okay, I hope Alex gets to do the possibility storm to Fairy Time Raveler combo at some point.
Okay, well, that's a lot involved in that. If Justin wins, he's probably going to win all at once, and if he doesn't, like in the first game, then Alex will have time to assemble basically whatever seems fitting, or however cards he draws. And there's just the variance involved in playing an 80 card deck is not something we're used to seeing. Commander players might be associated with that kind of thing.
Right. And so, something that we see from the start, Thought-Knot's in Justin's hand, which goes against what I was thinking with sideboarding. But you can see the plan of playing a Thought-Knot and cloning it a couple of times is pretty attractive.
Yeah. And Alex is going to have left in his sweepers because, again, he couldn't have boarded out very many cards. But still, if he doesn't have one, or if the first Thought-Knot takes the only sweeper, and then the successive Thought-Knots take away kind of the threats and the finishers, Alex could get just discarded out of the game.
Yes, although I think we're seeing a real scary thing here where a Mystical Dispute cast for 3 mana can break up this Thought-Knot Seer chain,
Yeah.
And so Justin's in a situation where his deck is very linear, and it really only gets to start doing its wackiness once it develops a bunch of resources in play. And so far, he's got 3 lands.
All right, so Alex does play his 3rd land. It's a Steam Vents, and it shocks in untapped. So that may signal, Justin, that there is something like a Mystical Dispute. And he does decide to play Sylvan Caryatid this turn.
Right. And so this is a huge tell that, okay, A, I just drew this Caryatid, and B, I have something better in my hand.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's a wonder if Justin is going to play, because by making this choice, he's basically playing around the Mystical Dispute you're talking about. If he's doing this, then I wonder if he did bring in his Destiny Spinners, because if he's if he didn't value them enough to bring in, then he probably shouldn't bother playing around the card either. And yet here we see Search for Azcanta opening the door for Justin to go ahead and cast and resolve his Thought-Knot Seer.
Right. And this is going to be pretty good. It's always a moment. Well, this actually isn't that great. So we got to take the Mystical Dispute here. But unfortunately, the Supreme Verdict is going to be very good against us if we do that. Now, conversely, we can leave the Mystical Dispute, but that's not a card that we're going to be able to play through very nimbly.
Yeah, that's tough, though. So we take the Dispute, which means we can resolve our hand is entirely blue creatures. But with the Supreme Verdict still in hand, our board's going to be wiped out here, and Alex will recoup the card he lost to the Thought-Knot Seer. And then what do we have going on from Justin's side? Doesn't look like much.
Yeah, I bet you $1 we're going to see a Supreme Verdict this turn.
Yeah, no bet. No bet at all.
Dang. If only.
Yeah, This I don't know. I understand the threat of the Mystical Dispute, but I think the Supreme Verdict was probably the card to take there. And then Justin recovers perfectly with another Thought-Knot Seer, and looks like this one will survive.
Well, so one of the reasons why I think you actually are priced into taking the Dispute there is that if you pass back with the cards you know about, I think a pretty easy play for Alex to make is Deafening Clarion and then continue holding up Interaction for a big blue spell, which would counter all of the clones,
Yeah, but it only counters one of the clones.
Right, but what I'm saying is that he's still able to play the board at tempo, and Thought-Knot Seer is not a good card in a mid-range fight.
Yeah, well, okay. I will grant you that if it trades, with removal, you're not really accomplishing anything. But if it survives and we can continue to strip things from the hand, then I feel like we could build up towards something. So we're going to see here, this Thought-Knot Seer is on the board. Getting the Trials is going to lock it down. But we're now going to see another one, I believe, as really that's all Justin's deck does, is make more copies of things that are already on the board. And we see, another Thought-Knot Seer. So we are now building up some effect here. I believe we're going to take Deafening Clarion here, as we don't want to actually fight 2 next turn.
You want to take that Deafening Clarion for sure.
Plus, there's already Gyruda Trials on the board.
Right.
So this is likely a choice that Justin can make here, is to, so we'll take the Clarion. And now there's nothing in hand that can stop this second Thought-Knot Seer from doing damage.
Yep, it's looking pretty good on board, although Search for Azcanta will help Alex dig for answers to the board state.
Yeah, it definitely helps, but it's kind of a slow effect, and fortunately in this case, the interaction where Thought-Knot Seer exiles the cards from hand so they don't contribute to the graveyard.
Well, dang, this is a real drawback against clones.
Yeah, so this is a 2 of, I believe, in Alex's deck, Tension Sphere, which will wipe out the Thought-Knot Seers. I'll get both of them, and Alex will again get back the cards that he lost.
This is
rough. Now,
it's a 4 for 1.
Yeah, the pathway is open if Justin can draw a land to finally enable Gyruda this game or this match, because it hasn't actually happened yet.
But Justin last turn scryed a tap land to the top of his deck. So this turn he gets to play a Clever Impersonator and copy Gideon if he wants. That's not a great play.
Well, it's something. It can hold. Yeah, it can protect us somewhat, and anything we can do right now is oh boy, it's tough though, because Alex has a whole pile of cards in his hand.
Oh, there we go. That's a card that has a lot of power here. Blink of an Eye can really do something, especially messing with a mostly sorcery speed deck like this Fire's deck.
Yeah, I mean, bouncing this Detention Sphere is going to really change what's on the board.
Yeah. Also, nothing wrong with a little end of turn duress my opponent. I don't think the second clone will be able to copy, or the clone will be able to copy the Thought-Knot because they enter simultaneously.
That's correct. But are we going to see Gyruda first before we'll just play Gyruda, tap out this turn? That's kind of what I expect. That's what our deck is designed to do, and well, we'll just have to see how Justin decides to go.
Right.
Narset, okay, that doesn't really mess with what we're doing to any large degree.
Narset parts the veils to find Narset on her ancient way.
And we have, I don't know, personally, I feel like, I don't know, we have two different iterations of the same Planeswalker, like in this case. I feel like the legend rule could apply here. It does not, but I wouldn't mind. And now I said I don't really pay attention to the lore, but still, I feel like maybe two iterations exist, like in Time Cop. If you probably haven't seen that, you're probably not as old as I am.
No, I've seen Time. Oh, come on, I've seen Time Cop.
There's two versions of the same entity cannot interact, or at least destruction. And yet,
so let me hit you with a counter example.
Okay.
Kamal Pit Fighter, Kamal Fist of Kroza.
Yeah.
Should they trigger the legend rule? It's the same guy. It's just he's been hanging out with a weird large bug in a forest, so now he's the Fist of Kroza.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because in order for him to hang out with himself, he has to have time traveled almost by definition. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the matter annihilates itself. And then
let me tell you something. Narset is from Khans of Tarkir, the block that 100% canonized time travel as a story mechanic in the modern era of Magic the Gathering narrative design. So time travel's on the table. These are two different Narsets.
Okay. Well, maybe you're right about that one. Anyway, either way, we're going to see. Are we going to see something coming here? Are we going to see a Gyruda?
No, we're going to see the Narset.
So we chose. Okay, so Narset made it into play first, and we chose to hold on to the Gyruda for the blink.
Yeah, I actually like this line again from Justin because this will let him put some pressure. The detention sphere getting bounced at instant speed will allow him to Thought Knot and try to clear the way for that counterspell that's so good. Yeah. Mystical Dispute.
So I understand that, but there's one Mystical Dispute gone. We know that. There's only two left, and something like 60 cards are available in Alex's deck since Justin saw the hand. The odds of those Mystical Disputes coming up aren't that high. I feel like maybe we could have just gone for it because, especially, we have three Gyrudas. We have two in our hand and one companionized, and so we actually can. Even if Alex just draws every counter in his deck, we're still going to be able to have an extra Gyruda. So I understand waiting and clearing the way, and maybe there's a dispute there, and we'll see what's going on. And there is. Okay.
Look at that.
So there was a dispute there. Not entirely good news for Justin, the rest of the kind of contents of the hand, but he does clear the way for the Gyruda to come down. Let's see. First time in the match, let's see what we can actually accomplish here. I'm hoping for fireworks.
Yeah. You want to see it go all the way, I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't love this kind of gameplay, but as long as the deck's doing its thing, you want to see it do its thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here we are with a Gyruda. And we get to mill 4 cards from each deck, and we found a Spark Double. All right. And Spark Double is a Gyruda now. And that looks like a lot of land.
Well, a lot of land.
Did we get something from Alex's side?
We got a nice deck, bro.
Ouch.
It looks like we might see. I imagine we're going to see this 4-mana Narset of Ancient Ways get taken off the table here by the Thought Knot and the Gideon. Although we could also see the Gideon get taken off the table. But no, I imagine it got. The Gideons have just been buffering each other, so they can't really do damage.
Right. So this Thought Knot can take a chunk out of Gideon, or it can kill off either Narset. And I agree with you. It's probably the new Narset. The jump kicking, but the kicking one that is going to go down here.
Right. I believe the kicking Narset's at 7 counters right now. She's very loyal, if memory serves.
Yeah.
I'm entirely wrong.
Yeah, it was.
Because she went the other way.
Yeah, she comes in at 4 and went and -2, so she was on 2. Right. So that goes down. There's a lot of cards in Alex's hand that Justin still has to deal with, though. But we do have another Gyruda available, so maybe.
Right. Another 2 Gyrudas, and we're likely to see a Supreme Verdict this turn.
Yeah, well, we can handle. I mean, can we Gyruda? We could win all at once. That's always possible. And that's it probably leads to a lot of frustration with this deck. Sometimes you're going to hit the chain and win the game out of nowhere, and that's exciting. And other times you're going to flub a little bit and not get anywhere. So I imagine there's whatever variance there is in Magic is going to be magnified tenfold in a deck like this.
I think that in a way it could be used to teach you kind of to accept the variance inherent in the game. Like I had this buddy when I was growing up who believed that everybody should play Legacy Belcher, a famous, perhaps the deck for which the term Glass Cannon was invented.
Okay.
Because the idea is once you play a tournament or two with Belcher, you really come to accept that you just can't win them all. No matter what you do, you just can't win them all.
Yeah. Can you actually win any of them is perhaps the question. It's interesting you bring that up. I am aware of one time when a Legacy Belcher deck made the finals of a large event. And the reason I can specifically pinpoint that one was because I beat it in the finals, and that was where my Legacy Open win came from, was beating Char Belcher in the finals.
Well, certainly I've lost to Counterbalance with Char Belcher, and I've also beaten Char Belcher with Counterbalance. That's, I believe that in a heartbeat.
Char Belcher is a fun deck. It is cool. The more so where the construction of the deck is kind of a puzzle on how you actually want to build it than the actual playing of the deck, which is, kind of just goes one way all the time. Now, I'm excited for... Now, okay, what do you think about this? Because I was curious last time when Justin chose to play the Gyruda from hand. This time he's choosing to play the companion one. You have any thoughts on whether you should play the companion one first or not?
Yeah, I think you actually want to play the companion one first to just preserve some info. It's pretty small, but it's it's a little bit of information you just get to hide away there.
That was my thought also, but there may be arguments the other way. As someone who hasn't played with the deck, I may just be unaware of the counterpoint that sways the other way.
Yeah, if you were playing against discard spells, it would make a lot of sense to get the card out of your hand. But I can't imagine we're going to see a lot of discard from this deck. We are going to see a Thought Knot Seer off of Gyruda, which is pretty good. Again, we're kind of seeing the small ball value plan come out of the deck this game.
Right. So we milled 12 cards that time, and we did not. We're not able to continue going. We did Thought Knot Seer to straighten up the hand a little bit. So maybe it's likely the creatures will live this time. Of what cards Alex is holding right now. And I'm informed that while Belcher may have never won a Star City Open, it did win an NRG trial once. So you're right. Then it does. Variance says it will win sometimes.
It's funny. I believe my friend lost to that deck in the top 8 playing Death and Taxes. And if you ever want to play a one-sided Legacy matchup, Belcher versus Basic Plains is pretty good for Belcher.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's a spot where once you get to turn 2 and play your Thalia, you're good, right? So what's the problem?
Okay. Oh, yeah, once you get to turn 2, of course.
Yeah. All right, so continuing on this game here, we see if Justin's keeping accurate track of Alex's hand, we see another Gideon and some Narsets in there, but no actual removal for the board.
That's going to be pretty good.
So this is a singleton.
Yeah.
Alex's deck, and it comes into play, and you can blink a card, and then your Planeswalkers can activate an extra time each turn, which is pretty wild, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that can happen. Gideon Trials, I guess, can actually
shut down the board.
Shut down 2 creatures. It won't be able to stop his opposing number on the other side of the board, but still, that's certainly better than we would have seen otherwise. Unfortunately, Narset activating twice a turn doesn't benefit us right now because it only has 1 loyalty left. Although we're just going to go ahead and cash in one of our cards in hand to replace it. And now we can just... Do we activate twice right now?
Yeah, that's a pretty good divination.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's more like a dig through timination.
Oh, my God.
So we're going to get 2 cards out of 8.
There's another dispute.
And a Drawn from Dreams, it looks like. Yes, those are indeed powerful cards. Interesting that Drawn from Dreams is a choice for Alex for kind of the heavy card drawing spell. It's maybe not the most efficient thing, but it also can't get as punished as Dig Through Time.
And it's also kind of that classic combo with Fires of Invention of turn 4, you play your Fires, you play your Drawn Through Dreams. Maybe some tech that's been ported over from standard versions of Fire decks.
You're absolutely right. That makes a lot of sense. So now we have a very crowded board with stuff, although the only creatures are still on Justin's side, but they can't do any damage.
Yeah, but I think the door is actually open right now. I mean, again, Justin needs to hit well, but if he hits the big chain into the dragon, I think he might get this one.
Yeah, so we have 26 cards in Alex's deck. So if we can get 6 more clones after the one that we are currently resolving, then we'll get there. Or we can build up a board and hit the dragon.
And crucially, we don't see a Gideon emblem in play for Alex, unless I'm missing something with Magic Online.
No, I believe you're right. I do not see one either. I thought we might have made one initially, but maybe not. And you're right. There does not appear to be one on the board. We did find the dragon. We did not manage to mill all the way out, but we found the dragon.
Looks like we only have 3 mana left.
Okay.
But we should be able to get this Gideon off the board this turn.
Do we want to activate Gideon here to attack? Did we miss that, or do we?
I believe the Gideons have just been blanking each other as one of the activations.
They have been, but Alex's Gideon this last turn took down Justin's other 2 creatures.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
I wonder if Justin has other plans here, or if he, because the Gideon had been negated every other turn, he missed the fact that it was live this turn. That's
yeah. And what's going to be tough here is that Gideon, I believe, will prevent all the damage Dragon Lord Kolagon would do. So even if it's really weird niche triggered ability, if her really weird niche triggered ability would trigger, it's still going to be blanked by that bubble effect.
Yeah, that's going to be a real issue. Otherwise, with Alex's, a tremendous portion of his deck in the graveyard, that Kolagon effect that, like you're saying, almost never happens, actually would have a huge effect. And it would only take only 2 spells to actually kill Alex, but the Gideon just activates on it, and okay. So Teferi Heroes.
Oh, he didn't realize. Yeah, oh no!
10 damage immediately. Alex down to only 6, and we do have. So we have active. There's still a lot going on in this game.
Oh boy!
It's just a little wild, which is kind of what we were hoping for with these decks.
Look, classic Pioneer 80-card deck. Dragon Lord Kolagon triggers.
So, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, gets to activate twice. It bottoms the Dragon Lord and then draws a card. Now, Justin still has a Gyruda left, and now Justin knows that that's guaranteed to hit the Dragon Lord when it activates.
Right, but Justin also knows there's a mystical dispute still in hand for Alex.
So, let's see how... Justin was 7 mana currently.
Oh, we've received an update from our wise news desk. Apparently there is a Vizier of Remedies hanging out waiting to be exhumed from Justin's graveyard.
Okay, I believe that costs 5 mana, but that is not a counterable. It's not a spell being cast. It's an effect. So that would get through Mystical Dispute. We have the draw from Dreams. Alex is tapped out here. Again, his 2 creatures are fogged. The Gideon can attack if we're on top of things this time. And we do have the Blink of an Eye to fire off here, which I guess it would force it to be recast the next turn. And Alex has a lot of mana, but Teferi Hero of Dominaria does cost 5, so that is a reasonable expense he has to go through. Okay, yeah, Blink on the Teferi.
And that makes sense also from the perspective of, this Mystical Dispute is pressuring some kind of action. Maybe you wanted to hold on to that to try to draw a card. I'm not 100% sure how to play a game like this, to be honest.
So the 2 lands on tap from the Teferi effects when Mystical Dispute is still online, but Spark Double was the draw, which only costs 4 and gets around Dispute, and now we're going to hit Kolagon, and I think this game is going to end.
Yeah, what a weird game.
We actually fit both dragons, and yeah, this this is a win. This Justin evens up the match. That was a very entertaining game.
Yeah. Again, this Gyruda deck does some really crazy things. When you put 1 million clones in your deck, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and as long as we avoided the Grafdigger's Cage problem, we managed to eventually battle through a number of Planeswalkers and counterspells and take it down to even up the match. So Alex will be going first in Game 3. I doubt either player's making too many changes based on what they saw there, as they had open deck lists, so they're not really learning much. Maybe they saw a card they didn't expect. I do suppose upwards of 50 cards were in the graveyards at the end of the game, so they did get to see how each other boarded.
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of information exchanged there. I didn't see Negate, although Justin wasn't really going through his graveyard for him.
So let's, so we didn't see Negate drawn for Justin, but there may have been some spilled over. Alex would know one way or the other by looking through the graveyard. Anyway, let's go ahead and, I want to see the end of the conclusion of this match. Let's go ahead and get this started. So Alex on the play for Game 3. Justin with a reasonable hand.
I think this might be the nut draw.
Yeah, we have Mana Source, Accelerator with lands to cast it, to Thought-Knot Seer, and then a Blink of an Eye to potentially bounce a Meddlesome Grafdigger's Cage if one finds its way into play. And don't forget, if you're watching and you're unfamiliar with playing with companions, the fact that Justin's main card is not in his hand doesn't matter, because he has one kind of stored away with a companion effect to cast whenever he wants.
Yeah, and Justin decides to bottom the redundant Paradise Druid, I think under the impression that if the first one dies, the second one's probably also going to get swept up, and he has enough mana in hand to deploy up to the Thought-Knot Seer.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. And also, if we want to build all the way up to 6 eventually, then getting 2 mana creatures swept up at once, instead of just drawing Aether Hub like he did, this is just fine. So how do we...
Great to see Aether Hub playing the role of Tendo Icebridge in Pioneer.
Right. Now you're dating yourself a little bit. I remember that card. That was a long time ago. One shot, basically exact same card as Aether Hub, except the energy mechanic didn't exist, so it just had its own counter.
Yeah.
Alex deploys 3 lands, developing fine, but Justin's going to go ahead and take a look at his hand here at least once his turn, and then maybe some more times as the game progresses.
Yeah, maybe every turn for the rest of the game. Who knows?
Yeah, certainly it could be. If there's no way to kill, if there's no removal for this Thought-Knot Seer, then yes, we could just see a card stripped from hand every turn until it's over.
Wow, this is not a great hand.
No, it's long-term, I guess, card advantage-y, but that's not going to help when your Planeswalkers are getting beat down on the board. They can't. There's no way to defend them, and the Narsets don't have any defense mechanism built in. And then, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say each of these Narsets is going to draw a card and gain some life.
Right. Well, this first, we didn't even get that far as the Tension Sphere was drawn, taking the Thought-Knot Seer, and now there's not going to be follow-up Thought-Knot Seers right away.
So now here's an interesting question. If you're Justin, you know that there wasn't another removal spell in Alex's hand. Now Alex has drawn another card because he removed the Thought-Knot Seer, and he'll get another card on his next turn. Do you want to clone this Paradise Druid and try to make sure you can Gyruda the turn after this?
I think, we have a 5th land, so I don't think we do. So
of course.
I feel like the question is, do we get our Thought-Knot Seer into play main phase to try and play around a counter, or do we do it for it at the end of the turn to try and clear the way for Gyruda on our 5th turn? And I kind of feel like I would have waited, but Justin cranks it off right now, and then we'll see. Deciding whether to attack with Paradise Druid here, I think wisely decides not to, as he wants to maintain the hexproof so it can be used next turn to resolve Gyruda if that opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, you don't want to see it get picked off by a down tick from Narset of the Ancient Way, for example.
Okay. Well, Clarion will take it out either way. So now we're just going to see more clones come down.
Yeah, honestly, this is looking pretty good for Justin. He's still slowly building up towards that Gyruda. And, how about another Thought-Knot Seer?
Yeah, and we'll take a look and see what's going on in the other hand. The just Planeswalkers. 2 Narsets are all that's remaining for Alex. And now we finally get a good hit in, and it's only going to take, depending on whether we decide to attack Narset or not. I mean, 2 more swings by double Thought Seer, or 1 swing and then a swing from 3 the turn after will end this game. Alex is under real pressure here, although I guess he has Yorion to defend himself as well.
Right, but instead he decides to go for Narset, I think hoping to dig for something that can answer one or both of these Thought Knots.
Well, let's see. I mean, the problem is his spells that deal with these are going to be expensive enough that they can't be that cast this turn, and then vulnerable to the additional copies of clones or of Thought Seer.
Yeah, I think perhaps the better play there might have been casting the Yorion just to get the body in play, and then you might have to hope there's a whiff here. But meanwhile, Gyruda's, it's on the table.
Yeah, no. Now, I feel shaky about this because if there's a sweeper effect, I want to be able to restart the Thought Seer chain, or at least have the potential of it instead of playing a clone here. But
yeah,
we'll see.
Also, why didn't we Gyruda?
Well, that option was definitely there. But, and we also, so we held back a Thought Seer, it looks like, as the one on the right is summoning sick. The one in the middle could have attacked there and chose not to.
Yeah, I think Justin might have played a little faster than ideal here, but he still looks to be in a pretty good position, although this could be a Supreme Verdict maybe. Nope, not at all.
This is the other Narset. So we're in a spot here where if Justin was, maybe it was just a misclick or a mistake, and those things happen. If it was a choice to play around something, it definitely was a sacrifice, because if Alex was at 12, then these 3 Thought Seers would be able to end the game here, and as it currently stands, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's huge, because this is a pretty tenuous board state, as powerful as it is.
Right.
Although I think this, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's hard to have a long-term position with Thought Seers unless your opponent actually dies, because any sweeper, your opponent clears the board and draws 3 cards.
Right. So now we see the Gyruda.
Right. Okay. Flip 4. We hit Gyruda and Vizier.
So I think Dragon Lord is clearly lethal here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dig 4 more.
Every clone lets us buy again.
Okay. Again, there are 22 clones in this main deck. There may be some of them boarded out, but I believe there's 22 main deck plus the 3 other copies of Gyruda. So really 25 that can be hit. Now, obviously, a bunch of them are in play already, and it looks like the chain broke on a Thought Seer. So
of course, you see the classic 4 Thought Seers, one of which is a clone in play, 2 Gyrudas, which are legendary creatures, and one of which is a clone and non-legendary.
All right, so it's got to be sweeper off the top, or in Detention Sphere is not going to do it. It has to be an actual Wrath effect. And Alex rip it off.
Looks like we see some GGs in the chat.
Okay, and Justin Brickman takes it down. Congratulations to him. That was pretty entertaining to watch, and I'm not sure that played out the way I was expecting.
I thought that Justin was going to be favored before the match, but I thought he would win a little more explosively.
So did I.
Instead, we saw him kind of grind through a couple of weird sideboard games.
Yeah, well, those Thought Seers were extremely strong. Okay,
Definitely.
So that concludes the first feature match for tonight. We're going to run a brief ad break, and then we'll be back, and I'm going to talk to Simon a little bit about kind of his play history and his approach to the game, and then we'll get into our second match later on. So thanks for sticking with us tonight, and we'll see you back in a minute. All right, we're back. Thanks for being with us tonight. This is night 2 of NRG at Night. And I'm here with Simon Kamerow, and we're going to talk about something that's kind of outside my range. I've been kind of, throughout my Magic, I guess call it a career, whatever you want to call it, I kind of latch onto one deck at a time and work on it until I know it very well. And Simon, and most of the time I'm going for established decks. Simon, you don't do that. Your approach to the game is totally different than mine.
Yeah, I very early on in my Magic career, I only played the best deck that I could get my hands on. I started playing in Magic tournaments when I was 11 years old, so I was mostly borrowing competitive decks from other players. So I'd always play, in Lorwyn Standard, I had somebody's Kithkin deck, for example, and I would try to play as competitively as possible. And I really burned out playing that way. I've never been a big fan of games like chess, or even something like StarCraft, where there's relatively few options in a very well-developed metagame. So it's sort of like a war of pure skill. I like to mess around a little bit more and play a bit more of the variance inherent in a card game.
Wow. You're beating me down here. The other 2 games I follow that are not sports are chess and StarCraft.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I'm sorry. I was just trying to come up with good examples.
Yeah, they're good examples. They are. You're just in a different. You're in a different whole portion of the game than I am, which is one of the great things about Magic. Yeah. So many people can find delight in it through just finding the way that they want to play, the way they want to experience the game. Mm-hmm. Now, is this so? You started out as a competitive player, and then, or no, I'm sorry, you started out as a net decker. Really, is what we're saying. Yeah. You copied established decks. Everyone does that. I do that too. And then you kind of diverged from that. What was kind of did you find yourself, so are you able to keep track in your mind, this was the part of my Magic playing when I was a net decker, this is the part when I was kind of on my own, which you found working on your own more satisfying?
I have, and to be honest, you got to be realistic with what you're doing. So I know that if I show up with a deck that has weird fringe cards in it. For a long time, before they banned Once Upon a Time, I was playing an Equipment Heavy's Wild Nakatl Once Upon a Time deck in Modern. Uh-huh. And that deck's not going to be great, but it's going to be really fun to pilot. And you have to accept that when you go into a tournament with a deck that's not the best thing people are doing. It's for sure not the best thing people are doing.
Okay. But you did. Sorry.
So I was going to say is I think you have to maintain a level of self-awareness and realism when you align yourself to the Brewers Guild, as it were.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. Now, you did manage to qualify through you've been successful. It's not just there are the bulk of top 8 deck lists you see are kind of mainstream decks that you saw every other day, but you have been successful. Yeah. With your own style, and you actually qualified for the NRG Championships twice, and you have an interesting take on not only on brewing but on deck selection. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so for the last NRG Series Championship, I had done really well the first half of the year, and then kind of fallen off in the second half. And partially, I just hadn't been able to attend as many events, and I don't play Magic online. I only play paper. So I just didn't have the same reps. Even when I was getting to play, I wasn't as fresh. And I was beginning to stress out about the championship, so I decided to just write a list of all the decks I could build. I have a ample collection of Magic the Gathering cards across formats. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down all the cards, or all the decks. I numbered them, and then I just rolled a bunch of Dungeons & Dragons dice to pick decks. And then I threw out the first couple of Modern decks I rolled up because they were completely unplayable, and ended up on a slightly less unplayable deck I think I won 0 games with.
Okay, but you did win games in your championships in the Legacy format with one of your decks, which is maybe not just a from scratch brew, but definitely a fringe deck that you worked on.
Right, and so you're talking about Enchantress. And so, for example, at the last championship, I played Doom Foretold, and I went as far as to play a basic Swamp in my deck in order to make sure that I'd be able to cast more black spells against Death and Taxes. Mm-hmm. I think that was the deck that I ended up losing to at the championship, so, oh well, best laid plans of Mice and Men. But I think Enchantress kind of exemplifies my approach to Magic, which is that there's frequently a tension between power and synergy. And in that last match, we saw that kind of exemplified where there was a really powerful, and there was a deck that created a powerful synergy by doing the strange Gyruda combo, but its individual cards were pretty weak. And Justin was able to achieve winning board states by leveraging the powerful synergies among his cards. Enchantress plays upwards of 30 mana sources usually, and it plays a ton of cards that do literally nothing or make you discard cards from your hand for the most part. But because they're all enchantments, you're able to beat every single fair deck in a fair fight. You can beat every, blue control deck over time. So it's figuring out where these synergies can hit a format unprepared that I think you can find the success in brewing.
So you're knocking on chess and StarCraft, and then you're playing Enchantress and just laughing about beating up on the blue control decks. That's me.
Yeah.
Oh, again.
I know. You're lucky I'm such a nice guy because I've been hired to, Jason Bourne style take you out or whatever.
All right. So I have done a little bit of brewing back when I was starting out. My first PTQ win was in Extended a long time ago, and I won it with an aggro Enchantress deck. Actually, it was like back then I just had Argothian Enchantress. I didn't have Presence, right. And it was an aggressive, and it was really a pile of crap. But that's the way everyone's decks back then.
What do you have, like Imperial Armor and the Wombat and stuff?
I actually had Ancestral Mask.
Oh, okay, right.
And
of course.
I had the Hidden Herd was one of my creatures which is for people that don't know. Simon obviously knows it's a 1-green enchantment, and as soon as your opponent plays a non-basic land, it's a permanent 3/3. I had Hidden Gibbons in the sideboard. And it was kind of just a beatdown Enchantress deck, and that was my first PTQ win. But that was a long time ago. Now, do you think because of kind of the proliferation we've advanced so far in the information age, deck lists are available all over the place. Do you think is it harder now than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago to be a brewer and be successful?
So I'm going to say yes for 2 reasons. Okay. I think the first reason is that in general, everybody is just better at the game. Over time, everybody gets better at the game. They play better lists. They have access to better strategies. They play more. I think it's just harder to succeed at Magic in general over time. And then the other reason why I think it's harder to brew is because the best decks are accounting for their weaknesses more readily. And that's because the hive mind is so good at sideboarding. So, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll see Andrea Mengucci posting on Twitter, European time, right? And he says, listen, if you want to beat Fires of Invention in Standard, play Calamity of War. Well, I didn't even realize people had moved on to playing Fires of Invention to beat the Yorion decks in Standard. You know what I'm saying? So it's this kind of thing where it's like the spinning metagame wheel spins incredibly fast. So I think when you brew now, you really have to focus on being a proactive deck as much as possible, because being a reactive deck requires I think a per card power level that most brews can't achieve.
Sure. Okay. That was good. That was insightful stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us. So that was Simon Kamerow on his history of brewing and kind of how things have worked over time. We're going to now we're going to speak with Simon again at the end of we're going to talk about how companions have kind of affected the brewer's mindset and just Magic in general. But right now we're going to drop down to our second feature match, which is going to be contested between Andrew Wolthuis and Shea Strausman.
Yeah, so, my old roommate, Shea Strausman.
Really? Okay. So that's good. So we have a slide here for Andrew, but not for Shea. So I'll go through this and maybe you can fill us in a little bit about who Shea is.
I've got a bunch of fun facts.
A property management employee, 28 years old in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He has top-aided one NRG Series event, which he didn't win. Competed in the championship in 2019. And another ranch-related fact, ranch is overrated. It belongs only on Doritos. Now, I will go one step further than Andrew, and I will say ranch is overrated and should never be put on anything.
Wow.
I will say that.
Now, Joe, did you know that in foreign countries, ranch is frequently referred to as American dressing?
I did not know that, but I believe it. Certainly. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and I believe we're going to have Andrew's deck list is up first, I believe. So we'll go over that. And it's a Boros burn deck, and we see, again, a companion.
Right. It's interesting because Lurrus is a permanent-centric companion. Lurrus lets you cast a permanent with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard each turn. And that's not something you would normally put with Burn, but in Pioneer, Burn has always had this issue of not having enough good spells, and Wizard's Lightning is now on the table because Gitu Lava Runner, Soulscar Mage, a couple of Viashino Pyromancers, and then all of them out of your graveyard again with Lurrus make it so that Wizard's Lightning is normally going to be 1 mana.
Yeah, that's definitely a point. Another argument I think in favor of Lurrus is that now, instead of having to have, you want to curve upwards, so you're going to have some 3-drops in your deck, whatever they may be. There's certainly some options, Rattlemaster, Chain Whirler, whatever else. But Lurrus allows you to build your deck so that you can just ignore that completely. All your 3-drops in your deck are just Lurrus, and it's always there, which I think really gives you some advantage in how you construct the rest of your deck. And I think that's really appealing and really neat.
Right. I think Lurrus making it so that you don't have to play as many lands because you're not playing as many 3-drop cards in your deck is huge. So you're going to flood out less often, and when you do, you're going to have something to spend your mana on.
Yeah. No, this is a nicely constructed deck. We'll see how it goes. Andrew's going to play against Shea Strausman, who is playing a Yorion deck. But before we talk about his deck, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Shea?
So Shea is originally from New York. I forget what part of New York exactly. Lifelong Mets fan, which is a curse of its own kind. I believe he's a software engineer. But let me tell you, one of the coolest things about Shea, one of his favorite acts is this Australian hip-hop group called the Hilltop Hoods. You should give him a spin when you get a chance.
Yeah, okay. I've definitely never heard of that. But, okay, so thank you for that. Now, we're looking at a Sultai Yorion deck. Now, yesterday, we had a Sultai deck, but it did not have Yorion, and so this one has 20 additional cards. We see numerous additional lands, and then some cards that we saw as singletons or even didn't make the cut yesterday are just present in more copies here. And there's just a lot of stuff in this deck, a lot of card advantage, just a lot of everything.
Yeah, this is a who's who of cards I've lost to in bug decks and standard over the past 6 years. I mean, Uro is obviously the main attraction, but you see such hits as Nissa Vest with Seer doing her best Borderland Ranger impression, Ravenous Chupacabra, Hostage Taker as a Ravenous Chupacabra, Walking Ballista sometimes being a Ravenous Chupacabra, Murderous Rider as sort of a Ravenous Chupacabra. So a lot of removal spells, a lot of cards that kind of do the same things, a lot of weird incremental card advantage. I think this might be a tough one, though.
Yeah, and one other difference from yesterday is the Sultai deck yesterday had its Emrakul in the sideboard. Here we see the main deck. So we do have a few changes here, and this Keenan Davidson inspired Sultai deck. We'll see how it does. Let's go ahead and go down to the match.
All right, so both players showing off their companions here. Looks like we're going to be looking over Andrew's shoulder.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew on the burn side. So let's take a look. We see 1 land, and that's immediately thrown back. And we see 5 land. And
I would have kept the first hand. 1 land, 2 1-drop creatures, and a light up the stage is enough for me to keep. I know that sounds really risky, but one of the things that in a deck like this is that if you don't kill Shea quickly, the game is going to go forever. And you can actually afford to stumble, as weird as that sounds. I think you're better off in that kind of situation than going down on any cards.
Well, in this particular case, yeah, we're going to end up with still a 1-land hand, and light the stage, but just without the creatures. So this sometimes can happen. You mulligan a couple times, you end up with exactly what you started with fewer cards in your hand, and that's unfortunate. But that is definitely what we see here. And really, Andrew wants to get off to a good start, because if we get to turn, let's say 7, it's unlikely he's catching up.
Yeah, now this is a great draw from Andrew because what he wants is repeated sources of damage. Shea doesn't have black mana established very early, although he did get that swamp, but he's not going to have perfect smooth mana curving out defensively.
Mm-hmm. And really, if this Swift Spear can hit 1 more time and we can turn on those light up the stages, then this is really, we can have a lot going for Andrew, and that's unfortunately for him not going to happen, as Satyr Wayfinder is going to hopefully find a land, but definitely provide itself as a roadblock to keep light up the stage from triggering this turn, unless Andrew's able to peel another land here.
And then you can see it hanging out in the graveyard. Andrew has expanded the graveyard kindly for us, but there's the Uro.
Yeah, that's also bad news. So we come in here for one, hoping to not get blocked, but really knowing we're going to, and then we'll just add another 1-drop to the board. So okay, next turn maybe Light the Stage will trigger, or we'll be able to be cast at discount, and we'll be able to hopefully find another land.
Yeah, and I think before Shea milled the Satyr Wayfinder block was kind of questionable. You know, it's the kind of thing where it's like, well, your opponent's kind of stuck on lands and stuff. Maybe you want to mess with their ability to cast light up the stage. But once you flip the Uro, you just want to start churning into your graveyard as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and we see another Uro cast from hand, and this one will sacrifice at the end of the turn, but gain some life, allow an extra land drop, and then next turn there are 5 cards plus an Uro in the graveyard. So Shea has certainly got things going on, but this is Andrew's chance. He's got to add more lands to the board this turn, and we see he does draw one.
Is that now that he's drawn the land, he's not even going to play it. He's going to light up the stage first, most likely, trying to hit another land off that.
Right.
Shea does need another green or blue source to be able to get this Uro escaped.
That's true. That's a good observation. So there's an option here for Andrew this turn. He could have played his Mountain and then gone Wild Slash plus light up the stage, which would have resulted in quite a bit more damage. Instead, we're kind of being more cognizant of card advantage, and we are hitting the free land off the top this turn. But still, we're Shea at 20 on turn 4. This is going to be tough. Although Thoughtseize is going to strip light at the stage, but still not the worst thing for Andrew to see, I don't think.
Well, Thoughtseize would be more of a life loss if Shea wasn't going to end this turn at 21.
Yeah, so the Thoughtseize might have been okay. The Fabled Passage, though, is very bad news, as we're going to see an Uro return from the graveyard to play, gain 3 life, draw another card, allow a land drop if Shea has another one, and really just set up very well to block anything that Andrew's going to be able to muster for the rest of the game.
Right, and so now that we see kind of the worst part of the mulligan playing out both ways. Andrew wasn't able to curve out smoothly, so he wasn't able to cash in those light up the stages for value in a timely manner. On top of that, he wasn't able to pressure Shea effectively, so Shea's just going to be able to get this Uro into play.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, it's unlikely that Andrew's going to be able to burn this down. There aren't direct removal spells in the deck that aren't burn-based. So, I mean, we can bring out Loris at some point to generate long-term revenge from the graveyard, but it's not going to do more than Loris just attacking every turn and gaining a lot of life.
No, and you know, one of the problems is, I don't know if you ever tried to beat an Uro in a format where you can cast lightning bolts, but it's really hard to trade for value there. It's even harder in a format where your opponent is casting more powerful spells.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
I'm not excited yet, but the Uro is going to leave the board, as we're going to burn off the Boros Charm for double strike and a Wild Slash. Yeah. Which can go to the face, actually.
Yeah.
And then, okay. Wild Slash to the face.
Every time Boros Charm is cast for a mode besides 4 damage, I get excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's 4 damage is obviously what you want to be in a position to be doing, because that means you're probably, winning, or at least, building towards a win. But here, we're getting her off the board. It can't come back immediately. So now we just have to deal with the other 5 cards in Shea's hand.
Right. Else that's kind of interesting is that you can see Andrew jamming in with his creatures there. And in terms of like a heuristic for this red-white burn deck, I think you want to trade off your creatures as quickly as possible because you want to get value out of them with Luris where you can.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's a good point. And we do see Grizzly Salvage, which, regardless of what cards Shea gets out of it, is going to allow Uro to be recast again. And Andrew popped up the little window there and considered conceding and decided not to. But this new
I played against Andrew at least once in paper, and he's a really good sport. He's got a great nature. He loves playing beatdown decks, loves playing aggressive decks. This has got to be kind of agonizing. Your opponent has up 1,000,000 cards, and they're about to bring back an unbeatable Titan.
Yeah, and if you beat it, they can just come back again. This is kind of what Uro does, and if so, now we can pack it in.
Make him tap the right man and then get out of there.
Okay, so let's take a look at Andrew's sideboard. Is there any help?
Yeah, there's a little bit of help. So you see Ash Zealot, which is maybe he's gonna do something. I don't really know what this card is supposed to do in Pioneer, but it would trigger off of an Uro, and it's a creature with haste, so maybe it'll do something. I mean, it's much better against Underworld Breach. Don't get me wrong. It's not for this matchup, but maybe it comes in here. Skullcrack also maybe could do something. Chain to the Rocks maybe could do something, but yeah, you don't really see any stars. You just see a lot of maybes.
Yeah, I mean, Hushbringer seems good too. We can shut down a lot of the effects from a lot of the different cards in the deck. Really, Andrew could board in.
That's huge.
Yeah, or Andrew could board in a lot of cards here. Which generally makes things tricky when you
I think what you have to be concerned about with something like Hushbringer, though, is so, for example, Hushbringer enters the battlefield. Then your opponent casts Uro. Uro doesn't die to its escape trigger. It also doesn't get its enter the battlefield trigger. But then Uro's just hanging out in play. It's a 3-mana 6/6.
Yeah.
And Hushbringer, it turns off Satyr Wayfinder, which is going to be great. It turns off all these crazy one-ofs in Shea's deck. But I think the problem is going to come down to kind of the card quality exchange. And Hushbringer is also a 2-mana 1/2 in your burn deck.
Hey, don't forget lifelink.
Right, sorry. Yeah, that'll matter too.
But yeah, no, you're right. It turns Uro itself into a pretty scary threat from hand. It does disrupt a lot of what else is going on. So there's definitely some risk to it. I agree with you there. And yeah, I'm interested to see whether we see it in the match. As far as on Shea's side, we see kind of not a lot of cards that are centered on aggressive decks. Maybe a cheap removal spell or two. Maybe Kalidas comes in, but
yeah, Kalidas is coming in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you see that's interesting is the Emrakul is probably going to come out. Maybe the Scarab God will come in if there's no better card to come in over the Emrakul. This is an 80-card deck that actually has a sideboard, and it has one-ofs in its sideboard. It has two-ofs in its sideboard, and that's the kind of principle I was talking about, where it's like, you're really just tweaking the percentage of generic mid-range card that's good against burn in your deck when you sideboard. You're not actually boarding in a Kalidas,
Right. Okay. Let's go. Let's see how this plays out. Game 2, feature match 2, roll it. Andrew on the play this time, and
it's great.
Yeah, no light to stage, but we have 1-drops, we have Ash Zealot from the sideboard, and we have a burn spell. This is good. This looks positive. And Shea is on a mulligan this time.
Yeah. If you ever want a really, really rough rule of thumb for a beatdown deck, 4 spells, 3 lands. And this is definitely a beatdown deck, and you see 5 spells, 2 lands, perfect hand.
Right. And also, like you were saying earlier, we have our 8th card stored away. And unlike Yorion, which is an 8th card that's going to come into play, almost potentially after Andrew's deck has either won or lost the game, Loris is going to come down fairly early to replace any of these 1-drops or 2-drops that actually get killed.
Yeah, and see, here's an interesting thing about Shea's deck. Thoughtseize has to stay in. There's not a better card to bring in than Thoughtseize, even though this is a burn deck he's playing against. And he Thoughtseizes into one of the worst hands you can see, because none of these cards are really that unique. Nothing's going to get broken up by taking any of them.
Yeah, so Boros Charm is selected, which part of the reason for that is it's the only card that can't be recurred by Loris.
Mm-hmm.
But Ash Zealot, I thought maybe there was a chance that Ash Zealot would be selected just because it's going to come down. It is the only card in the deck being cast from the graveyard is Uro. So it's not going to be too relevant as far as that goes, but it is 2-power haste, and we're going to continue getting in, and there's a follow.
Joe, I can't believe you would overlook Jace Vryn's Prodigy flipping into Jace Telepath Unbound and minusing on a spell.
You're right. I did. I blew that one completely.
Yeah, pretty fringe effect, but I guess a 2/2 haster is kind of on the menu for this matchup.
All right, so what is worse? Me overlooking Jace casting cards from the graveyard, or you overlooking lifelink on Hushbringer?
I'm going to go with all of the times I misunderstood the clone and Gyruda math in the first match we did tonight. But, as an owner of a bunch of extended art, weirdo, strange, abstract art Hushbringers, I can't believe I forgot the lifelink.
Yeah, me neither. That's quite embarrassing. But, okay, so here we are. We reach turn 3, and Andrew has a choice. He has 3 1-drops, or he can play Loris.
Ooh, and we see him hold on to this Swift Spear in his hand. I'm not sure he was, maybe he forgot to play pre-combat, so now he doesn't want to show it, or maybe he's holding it because it's the best creature to follow up a sweeper effect. But either way, it's looking great for him right now.
Okay, and we do see the Uro here, so we are going to gain some life. But you're right. That definitely could have been. Oops, I forgot to play it first, so I'm gonna not reveal the fact that I messed up. Which, I mean, that happens. I'm not gonna pretend it doesn't happen. But maybe it to have a surprise. And so here it comes down, Wild Slash, and let's see, let's go 12.
This is a lot of damage.
5, 6, 7, 8. I believe this is
12.
Shade at 2.
Yeah.
And with the inability to we don't have enough cards to Flashback Arrow, which we couldn't do anyway. And so what are we hoping for here? We have.
So there's a main deck Languish, and I think in the sideboard there might be a Ritual of Soot. So a sweeper effect might pull him out of the immediate issue, but then a land would allow the Swift Spear to come back from the graveyard and poke for another one.
Right. That would be really neat if we saw a sweeper here and then land Loris, Lava Runner or kill you. That would be pretty cool. Are we going to, let's see, what does Shea have? Shea has not conceded, so he's got something. We do have
Languish. There's the Languish.
All right. Can we follow up with a land drop for the game? This is exciting. Can we see Loris take down the game? No. Well, okay. I guess we can.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah. So really, we're drawing to quite a few cards. The rest of the Lava Runners, every single burn spell in the deck, and every land in the deck, or not every land, but most of the land. That was Andrew was probably feeling pretty confident about that. Plus, he's only playing 60 cards, not 80, so he had pretty good chances there.
Yeah, it's a real I told you so moment. So now Shea's going to be on the play.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting situation. What do you think about bringing in a Mystical Dispute over one of the worst cards in the deck?
Well, so maybe we can bring back the deck list, and we'll take a look at what the worst cards in the deck might be. There we go. Good job.
I'm thinking, cards like Thoughtseize, this Emrakul doesn't look great to me. Honestly, all the creatures are better. I can't imagine that it's going to be better than the Thoughtseize would be, though. So never mind. I don't think we can do it. I think something people don't look at it enough is the kind of limited theory of would a 3-mana mana leak be good in this matchup?
Right. Now, and I'll grant you that it's probably not. Maybe it's not better than Thoughtseize, but and I agree that Emrakul might come out, but Ashiok maybe is another card that could come out because that's a card that, it puts down blockers, but it's pretty slow. Maybe we could trim out Ashiok if we want to put in a counter. I don't know that it's likely, but it's possible.
I'm just always thinking about it, I guess. I'm just always thinking about it. Yeah. But all right, let's go down. Let's see how this one shakes out. I think right now with Shea on the play, I might actually give it to him because I think he has enough diverse, powerful mid-range tools that with enough cards in his hand, he should be able to take this one. This is a good start for Andrew, though.
Yeah, both players kept 7 this time. Or 8, however you want to look at it.
However you want to look at it. Good Thoughtseize, too.
Yeah. So Light of the Stage is going to bite the dust again, I imagine. No,
so that's interesting. He must have some sort of life gain in his hand that he wanted to make sure he got off. Or maybe he has a bunch of removal spells, which really hurt the ability of Light Up the Stage to be deployed.
Yeah. It could also be there's another Thoughtseize, and it's planning on taking the Light of Stage on turn 2. I don't know if that's likely, and it's going to be unfortunate since a second copy was drawn.
Right.
What's Shea have? He could have blockers also, and Light of the Stage, resolving much later in the game or for full cost is not as much of a problem.
No, now we see some goofy Yorion synergies as you just want random value permanents in your deck, so why not Trial of Ambition?
Yeah, why not indeed? Okay, so we find Inspiring Vantage, and we're going to go with Lava Runner, and there is a spell in the graveyard.
So I think we might see the Wizard's Lightning fired off here to convert on the damage. Right. I think it's tempting to hold it for value. But, you're passing up on these 2 points of damage. It seems likely to me that Shea has another removal spell in his hand, basically. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So Grizzly Salvage Hall, yes, you're right. So we just lost, that's 2 damage that we just can't get back that we could have had there. Something that is interesting to me is that we chose to play Inspiring Advantage over the Sacred Foundry, which was revealed on the Thoughtseize. If it was me, I don't feel like my life total is very relevant here. I would have gone ahead and played the revealed card.
Right now, so the only pressure there is you have to think about the slight chance of drawing another Inspiring Vantage, and is the inability to have 4 untapped mana on turn 4 worth that given up info? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it seems kind of tenuous either way to make a impassioned argument.
Right. No, you're right though. That is drawing an advantage is a relevant point. Okay, so here we're going to see. No, we're not going to see lightning first. Maybe we'll see lightning during combat. I can't imagine we're going to give up the
no. Yeah, okay. At this point, we don't need to see it because it's all we need is the point of damage. I think deciding between whether or not we wanted the hasted lava runner was the big call.
Right. Okay, so we're going to play. All right, land from hand, and we're going to play Eidolon probably off of life stage. So this is good. We have a solid board presence. As long as it's on a 4-drop coming down, then Shea's going to get dinged a little bit from the Eidolon, and Andrew still has more card advantage and more burn in hand.
Right now, unfortunately, Shea does have the ability to bring back an Uro this turn.
Yeah, that's bad. It will trigger the Eidolon, though, so Andrew can celebrate for a little bit.
Yes, the Eidolon will do -1 damage.
Well, it's something at least.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I'm not sure that there's a lot that Andrew could have done differently in this game. It really showcases the power of Uro, but something else that it showcases is early on when we were looking at deck lists, you said Andrew didn't have any of those random 3-drops that red decks have played in Pioneer before. I've actually played a lot of red in Pioneer, and one of the cards that you'll often see in people's sideboards are cards like Rampaging Ferocidon or the Tibble More of the Spark that also turns off your opponent's ability to gain life. Because the problem with Skullcrack is that if you Skullcrack one activation, that doesn't really solve the Uro problem. You want to play these cards that advance your game plan while incidentally dealing with what your opponent's doing. That's why Ash Zealot looks so much better than Skullcrack did in this matchup. Because Ash Zealot is just a 2/2 with haste.
Yeah, that's excellent points you just made there. So we're seeing the burn spell that was held earlier fired off at the face here in order to trigger the light stage, and revealing another Eidolon and a Boros charm, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I believe the Battlefield Forge in Exile was from the previous turn, so maybe a slight misstep there by playing the one from hand, but that's not likely to matter too much. And then we see the Paradox ones on the board. Maybe. It's not looking good for Andrew, but maybe.
He does have a lot of powerful, just in terms of potential damage going. But the problem with Eidolon when you are behind on life and not really ahead on the board is that your opponent gets to dictate the terms of engagement. Mm-hmm. So Shea is going to say here, sure, 3 for 1, that's fine.
Yeah, well, let's see. So we're coming in. We also have the potential for Yorion, which can't effectively blink the Uro, but it can reset the trial and pick off another creature.
Yeah, it can also just put 4 power in play, which is huge in this situation. And Andrew's just going to cash in his board state, which makes sense considering how bad Eidolon is for him right now.
Yeah, that's true. And he has Lurrus, so he can rebuild to some degree. But Shea is not done. Uro dies, and there appears to be a follow-up. So leave the combat phase. There we go.
What's interesting about this deck is that the burn deck is, in a way, Lurrus almost feels like the kind of sideboard tech you would want against a control deck from like 2014 or 2012, when your opponent didn't have a ton of permanents, when they were mostly using individual spells to interact with your threats, because Lurrus fights really well in a 1-for-1 game. Lurrus doesn't really do a whole lot against Uros, though.
No, it sure doesn't. I mean, the only saving grace is that it's actually free, except it costs you some of the cards you talked about earlier. For Rampaging Ferocidon, we can't play that, and that would be nice here.
Right, exactly. And you see the kind of situation where it's like, all right, we can cast it from the sideboard, but it's not necessarily the kind of game that you want to get into in the first place. You would rather be using your 3-drop to kind of do the last couple points of damage than to try to swing the entire game with it. Now, I'm not being entirely fair with how I'm depicting the game, because obviously Shea had a very good draw that lined up against a bit of a clunky start from Andrew, the way things ended up playing out. But, it kind of shows in terms of the overall power level, as powerful as the companion mechanic is, Shea is still going over the top by just being a mid-range deck that plays to the board here.
Right. And now we have options here. We can bring back Uro, or we can Yorion to reset the Wayfinder and, more importantly, the trial and eliminate the Luris. And if that Luris goes down right here, Andrew really doesn't have much left.
Yeah, I would get that Luris out of here as quickly as possible. Well, that's pretty good too.
Yeah, so this can potentially solve the same or accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, why not?
Pick off the Luris, and then I guess Wayfinder can actually attack if it wants to.
Yeah, and again, Andrew's at 11. Earlier in the match, I saw him put a land into play tapped, and I thought, well, that's kind of funny. Oh, and he's out of here.
Yeah, and it was just going to get out of control. He has one burn spell left in his hand, no other resources, and really, what from that point on, what Shea's doing is going to be bring back Uro or cast Yorion, reset my stuff, and Andrew's just top decks cannot compete with that.
Right now, so in the first match, what we saw was Alex play a mid-range deck that couldn't close. Shea's deck did not have that problem.
Definitely not. Okay, so we're going to go through a few ads real quick, and then Simon and I are going to briefly discuss our opinions on companions, and then we'll be interested in chat in your opinions, any questions you might have regarding that, or regarding anything else for either one of us. So let's go ahead and get that done, and we'll be right back. So we want to acknowledge KMC. They make a fine product, sleeves, useful to every Magic player who's playing, live matches, which is maybe not all of us right now, but they are available. They sponsor the series. They're available at all NRG live events at discount. And so we acknowledge them, helping support the series, even though right now business is probably down for them also. But thank you for sticking with us. Next up, we have Nerd Rage Gaming website. We're still open. Singles, collections. You can buy and sell online, nerdragegaming.com. Contact the store. Things are still running through the online portal. The owner and and the manager go to the store most days to kind of keep up with the online commerce that is still functioning. It's important to us. Things are down, obviously, everywhere, but we are still open. So if you're looking for singles for your home game Commander or for just planning for the future, we are still out there, so think of us. Next up, we have Ikoria, which is going to be available shortly. It's the paper release was delayed and is currently available online on Magic Online in Arena, but shortly will be available in paper, and we have boxes available for order. So if you haven't played Ikoria Limited, I'm going to tell you, it's quite fantastic. I love it. I don't know if Simon, if you played much Limited.
Yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to because I haven't been able to, get to a game store.
Yeah. No, I know.
But
yeah,
I'm getting a lot of FOMO from watching people draft online.
Yeah, this is a very entertaining set. Okay, so next up, Commander 2020 decks. We have the full set of them available at nerdragegaming.com. In addition to the boxes and the singles, you can purchase the Commander 2020 decks if that's more the way you like to enjoy the game. I was going to say more casual format, but casual's not necessarily casual. It's just different.
Very cutthroat.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm not a big Commander player myself, but I have several years ago, I was walking through a tournament hall, and some players just stood up and asked, they wanted to meet me, and then one of them said, "Hey, you want to play in our Commander game?" And I was like, "I don't have a deck. I don't want to play this." Like, "Oh, you can play mine." I was like, "Okay." And then people were just beating the crap out of each other, comboing out all kinds of nonsense. I didn't know half the cards. It was a mess. Anyway, the new edition Commander 2020 decks are available. Next, stay connected with us online through social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. I almost messed it up again. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram /NRG Series, as well as the nerdragegaming.com website. And finally, I said finally, I lost count. Maybe this isn't the last one. Our chat emotes. If you're following the channel here and you're enjoying the content you're seeing, we're going to be here weekday nights. If you want to subscribe to the channel and help us unlock the rest of the emote group, feel free to do so. We appreciate it. And if you want to play in an event and have your matches potentially covered on NRG at night, the next event in our series is on, I believe it's a Sunday, May 9th. It's standard, and it's a Saturday. It's going to be on Arena this time, so we're gonna give that a shot. This event was obviously played on Magic Online, and so if you're interested in playing standard with us, we're going to be using the MTG Melee software, which I tried out on Sunday for the first time, And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. It worked very well. So if you want to join us for that, feel free. We'd like to see you out there. And if you want to see your matches on here, play in the event. We'll see what happens. Okay, that's it. I wasn't sure. I knew there were 7, but then I lost track of how many we had actually done. Now, for those of you still with us, thanks for watching tonight. So kind of the topic, Simon being a brewer and companions being in all the decks tonight and a big thing. So we want to talk about companions and kind of how their impact on the game. And to kick this off, I want to show a tweet from Sam Black from last fall, which didn't obviously regard this set. But what he said was, this was when Pioneer was introduced. If you don't think something in your Pioneer deck needs to be banned, you're not trying hard enough. The victory condition at this point in the format is getting a card banned. If you don't think your deck will do that, build a new deck. So the same kind of, I feel like the same kind of mindset could be applied to companions in all kinds of formats, and I mean all the formats: Legacy, Vintage, Modern, Pioneer, Standard. Companions are all over the place doing ridiculous things. Players are complaining. Simon, now as a brewer, is that kind of, are you trying to figure out fun decks to take advantage of companions? Are you trying to just obliterate people? What's going on?
So I'm going to take off my brewer hat real quick here.
Okay.
And let's talk about this from the, assume our only goal when playing Magic is to win as many matches as possible.
Okay.
I think that what Sam is describing is a pretty accurate description of most non-rotating formats, which is, what is the most unfair, unbeatable thing you can do? How can I push that as much as possible? And currently that feels a bit like companions, but we actually just saw in the last match that the way that companions influence deck building is really hard to understand. I've made this analogy a few times, but I think companions are a bit like planeswalkers. And when planeswalkers debuted in Lorwyn, every single creature that had a power greater than 0 in the game got better, because pressuring planeswalkers became important all of a sudden. And nobody knew that at the time. It took a while to realize that. Maybe some people intuitively understood it, but it was, over time, we saw the kind of design of Magic decks be much more interested in playing to the board than just playing entirely on the stack. And as a result, with companions, it's going to be interesting to see what similar sort of pressures come out over time. So there, what we saw is, okay, I'm playing against a deck that can't play 3-drop permanents. All of a sudden, the entire world opens up to you, because there's a limit to how well you can fight a mid-range fight in Magic the Gathering if you can't play anything that costs more than 2 mana,
Right, yeah. The stipulations, in some ways, are also going to encourage different types of things. And I think it's really cool. The 80 card decks with Yorion, as opposed to limiting not what you can play, it's just saying you can play whatever you want. There just has to be a lot of it. And and you can see in the first match, the drawback of a Yorion deck was that in order to mitigate the variance of playing 80 cards, Alex was playing Fae of Wishes, so he didn't have a real sideboard. And when you play Yorion, it's hard to sideboard anyway. So he couldn't actually bring in enough cards to deal with a very linear combo interaction out of Justin Brickman's blue-green Gyruda deck. And so that's the kind of thing where it's like, normally a blue-white-red deck in Pioneer, you would expect to be able to interact a bit better on the stack, but all you had was 3 mystical disputes. And so when you're trying to brew in a format that seems increasingly well-defined, you want to look for the stuff that people have had to metagame themselves out of playing. And then you want to play cards that punish them for not having that. Now, do you think there's a risk that players will be less interested in brewing for formats with new companions because of the risk that all your work will be wasted if they get banned?
So I think that, unfortunately, lately in Magic the Gathering, we've seen a lot of bans. And I got to be honest, I am not the person who got Once Upon a Time banned. If you've ever cast Once Upon a Time and found a Hex Drinker with it, you were not the problem, okay? But unfortunately, us Hex Drinkers are not the only people playing Magic the Gathering. And I think what you got to understand when you invest in something like Magic, which is cards with theoretical value, but at the end of the day, cards for a trading card game, is that there's a million things that can go wrong. There are people like me who only play paper, and then a global pandemic happens, and we kind of find our Magic playing on hold for a little bit, Yeah. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, it's like what Sam Black says. If you're playing the game where you're trying to play a deck to get it banned, you can't be too upset if you end up getting the deck banned.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's fair. Okay, so that's going to be the conclusion of our show tonight. I hope you enjoyed our matches. I hope you enjoyed having Simon here with us. We'll be here for the rest of the week, and then next week we'll be back again with the conclusion of this event. We're going to be working our way through the matches. Tomorrow we have another match from round 2, and then we'll move into round 3. So hopefully you'll join us back again at 7 o'clock Central Time. And that's going to wrap it up. So for Simon and myself, for